I'm here not to teach you business. Neither am I here to teach you finance. I'm a linguist who worked with business for over 25 or nearly 30 years. And this means I'm teaching you to understand business rather than do business. But understanding business means that you understand how to work as businessmen as well. Therefore, you need to know their internal, their mentality, their psychology, their attitude to what they're doing. And then if you get all this understanding, then you will probably be able to understand their language. Because in spite of the fact that it may seem to you that the terminology of business is always lacks any synonymity, and the terminology of business can be understood only one way. It's not so. There will be many terms, business terms, that have so many different manifestations depending on who you are: the investor, the lawyer, the owner of the business, manager, an analyst, and depending on your position in the hierarchy of the company, in the hierarchy of the business, you will have one and the same term being presented to you in so many different faces. Therefore, it's very important for you to get the understanding of the general framework, how business works, and then if you get the understanding of this framework, then you will little by little start accumulating various terminology. I hope you have already started reading Vedomosti and Financial Times as I recommended to you last time. Have you? Yes, that's good. Do you find it interesting to understand anything there in these papers? Please don't read about politics. Read about business. Okay, then so that we shall have a very clean experiment. Okay. Each time I'll be asking you questions about where we stopped last time, so that we will check how we move successfully from one notion to another, gradually coming to the general framework of our understanding. If I tell you that all business is about, do you think you can give me the definition? All business is about making profit, you say. Do you agree? No. So that's not so. What's your vision of doing business? Making the value. All right. So all business is about creating value. So this means that to a certain extent, if I were a specialist in social sciences, I would say that business probably is socially responsible to a considerable extent, because value is, how would you? Yes, and please shut the door. And value, as we have defined it last time, is usefulness. And now I will probably ask you to give me probably an example or two of usefulness. How do you understand usefulness? Because usefulness is related to another business term that is highly important for doing business at all in general. So usefulness is demanded, something that is in demand. Usefulness is something that is in demand, and something that is in demand is otherwise called. It's a very business term. Something that is in demand is called the market. Market. So all business is about serving the market and creating value for the market. This means if there is anybody who probably thinks that the item or piece that you are manufacturing or service that you are providing in the market is of value for this particular person, don't think that the whole market will respond accordingly. The whole market will think that it's nonsense and that it's not worth producing it, manufacturing it at all, and will not start buying it. Although it may seem to you that it's of high value. Is bread of high value for us? Okay, so if you think that bread is of high value, this means that you as a potential businessman may think that manufacturing bread or baking bread is may be potentially a very profitable sort of business. Yes? So do you think that if you set up a company whose purpose will be to bake bread and sell it in the market, it will by all means be successful. Yes or no?
No.
No, why not?
There are many other producers.
Many other manufacturers, yes. Many other people and companies that are bake bread. And this means that you have to be, in order to be successful, you have to be, another word that is very important for us in the understanding of business. And I'm going to devote the whole lecture to this. So you have to be competitive. You have to be competitive. So competitiveness is one of the most significant parameters of being successful in business, of being successful in the market. And when we speak of competitiveness, we mean, of course, that first of all, that you can manufacture goods that or render services that are more or less comparable to what you are going to produce, or comparable to what you are producing, or if not so, you may create a product or an item that will be competitive, not because it is the same but of a better quality, but it may be the same but of a slightly different functionality. Very much possible. What is this? What is this? You say it's chocolate. I think Snickers would be highly dissatisfied with your answer. They will be highly dissatisfied with your answer because their communicative strategy is absolutely different. They don't call it chocolate. What is this for them? We shall return to the definition of brand. Okay, yes, it is brand. Yes, but in order to be successful, they understand that there are other chocolates in the market, like Mars or Twix or whatever, I don't know. And if you decide, for example, to produce this bar of chocolate in the market, in order to be competitive, you have to invent something. In order to avoid all possible competition from all other companies that are producing the same thing, in order to create value. So if you do not create, if you think that you by manufacturing thing and thinking about the potential usefulness, meaning yes, it is useful because it has so much, I don't know, sugar, and it has so many nuts, and it's very delicious. You can drink tea with this, and so on and so forth, and it's good to taste. It will increase your mood. Your mood will become better after eating this. This is not all. Any idea of what sort of new value or usefulness do you think we can communicate by producing and placing it in the market, like a piece like this one, Snickers? Just remember the advertisement. Okay, what does this mean? Yes, and shut the door also, please. To be more active. So to a certain extent, they would be telling you that this is not just chocolate, but this is something that will increase your energy. But I think it will not be competitive in this case. It will not be competitive with Red Bull or any other, I don't know, brands that energizers. Do you drink any energizers? No. Thank God. Neither do I. Oh, so probably this is not the whole thing. Any other ideas about what sort of value to communicate to the market? Be inventive. Those people who wanted to do business in the future. You can also start producing another chocolate bar in the market and communicate a different idea, a different sort of usefulness to the market, and then you will be successful just by producing the same thing. Any idea? Okay, I will tell you. I'll not torment you, and then probably you will start. On the basis of this example, you will invent just multiple other examples. It may seem odd, and it may seem exceedingly primitive, But Snickers decided to call this food.
じゃあshow us how it's done.
This is food. This is the foundation of their marketing strategy. Can you imagine such a simple phrase? Snickers is food. What does this mean? This means that it is not a sweet. It is not something that you take as a bonus for doing something good. It is not something that you take at the end of the day just because you think you want to relax and so on and so forth. But they call it food, and by saying this, they mean that this is an absolutely indispensable thing for you in your life. In what way? It means that when you are hungry and you have no time to spend and go and have dinner and lunch somewhere, what do? You go to the nearest kiosk and you buy some food. What is the fastest food you can eat that can generate a lot of energy in your body? Snickers. So this is a very, well, it sounds very primitive. It sounds very primitive, but this primitive marketing strategy can generate a lot of cash for as long as they continue delivering the same idea through advertisements and other public campaigns. So it's very important. Okay. What is this? Water. It's called Святой Источник. All right. Do you believe that water here inside is holy? And if I drink it, there will be immediately a halo over my head. No, no. So, do you think it's a successful marketing strategy to call water the holy spring? Yes. Sort of. What do you think was the idea of those people who actually decided to manufacture, to produce this water and then bottle it? It cleans the organism. But do you think the same? Not only the organism, but also the spirit. Yes. Many. If you drink it, and if you believe that it is taken from the holy springs of Russia, probably. Do you think it's not? This is the time to rebrand it now. I think it's high time to rebrand it because nobody already believes that it's a holy spring. They think that it's a tap water. What's a tap water? Вода из-под крана. So generally speaking, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But I think that it's tap water, cleaned. Any other idea about what sort of thing could be done with just water, in selling it in the market? What sort of usefulness we can create for pure water in order to sell it successfully in the market? And don't you think that all other brands of water do the same? It's good for health, it's refreshing, right? It's actually, when you're thirsty, it's quench your thirst, this feeling of thirstfulness. So, any other idea?
You need a handy bottle.
Oh yes, I think it's a very good thing to do, like Winnie the Pooh, очень полезный горшочек. В нем можно хранить. The handy bottle could be also quite good. Look, the bottle is quite useful. It could be used for all sorts of things. Buy it. You can drink water, you may not drink water, but the bottle, the form of the bottle is very, very good. Could be a good marketing strategy, like for selling the earthenware, the pots, for example, with honey. You can say you can eat honey, but then you can use pot, and pot will be very, very useful for all sorts of stuff. Right. So, this is one of the most important things in doing business. When you understand usefulness or value creatively, although value has a material side, and value can always be it cannot be calculated, by the way. Value cannot be calculated. Although many people say, when somebody says to you in Russian, стоимость, вы можете пригласить специалиста, который что сделает со стоимостью? Какое действие он произведет над стоимостью? Оценит, да. Никогда не рассчитает, не посчитает. Да? Невозможно посчитать или рассчитать usefulness. That's just impossible. And what is the English verb that you would suggest for to estimate value or to appraise value? Therefore, people who are doing this, or the consultants who are doing this, they are called either valuers or appraisers. And therefore, in the market, you will find a lot, and we're going to find a lot of documents that explain to you the meaning of. I wouldn't say the exact value of value, but it will give you the material representation of value. Normally, you will be surprised. This is something that you already know. And when you invite a consultant to estimate your value, generally speaking, you know the value of the company. Why do you think it is necessary for you to invite a consultant for the estimation of value in general? And generally speaking, it is such a successful business in Russia, actually, not only in Russia, but also in the whole of the world, because estimating the value of assets is obligatory by law every year. Every year you have to re-estimate the value of the assets of your business again and again. And every piece of valuation sometimes may cost you actually dozens of thousands of dollars. Therefore, it's a very good business. If you graduate from the university and decide to do business, I might recommend to some of you to go and work as valuers and appraisers, but by all means join the acclaimed appraisers who work very well in the market. So, any idea why it is necessary to do? Why it is necessary to estimate the? Mm-hmm. First of all, it is important to do because this is part of the instrument that is called transparency. Transparency. You need to make your business transparent. Because if your business is not transparent, this means that you are not honest, and the business may be criminal. And this, by re-estimating the value, to a certain extent, you prove to the state that the assets that you have, the assets that you own, are actually received lawfully. And once again, making a step backwards to our previous lecture, can you remind me of the ways we normally acquire assets and what assets are? How would you define assets? Give me the most general definition of assets, how you define them, and then. Yes, so it's an item that can generate cash for you. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you the question about one business that is well familiar to you, and you will give me the definition of their assets. Banks. What is the main asset of the bank? Money. That's true. So for the banks, money generates money. Money generates money. What do you call money that generates money?
Capital investment.
But not in the bank. But if you speak of the bank, what do you call money? What do you call money in the bank that generates money? Credits, loan. Yes, loan. Loans. 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 And also, not only loans, Do you take loans from the bank? Does anyone of you have the loans in the bank?
Not yet.
Thank God. Not yet. Not yet. And, yes.
Maybe banks can realize the leasing.
Which services? Leasing services. Yes, that's also possible. But mostly mostly with the bank, it is important that you either come to the bank and ask for a loan or a credit, and another way to generate money is just to deposit your money there. That's all. Just go and deposit money there. This means that the bank itself will know what to do with your money. What can the bank do with the money? Either invest, or what else can bank do with your money? Yes, take your money and give it as loans to somebody else who will then pay interest on your money. Therefore, your money will generate more money for the bank. So this means that this is their assets. This is their main asset. And it's interesting that, for example, you may come to the bank. I'm telling you the real story. I will not give you the name of the bank, but I will tell you the real story of one of the banks, which is quite big in Russia. And when you come to this bank, and say, I would want to take credit, to just loan from you. And they say, what can you give me as security? The bank says, what can you give me as security? What is security? How can you define security or guarantee? What will be the Russian for that? So the bank will definitely ask, Залог, гарантия. So the bank will definitely ask for security. It can be either, yes.
Also, our bank should know about your incomes.
Yes, definitely. That's possible because the bank wants to make sure that you will make payments every month. But just in case, if you suddenly die or if you fall ill, there are two ways to create a guarantee. Either you insure your loan. You insure a loan with an insurance company. And this means that every year you will have to pay not only to the bank, but also to the insurance company in order to create a guarantee for your money that you take as a loan. That's one thing. But also, another way is taking another asset that may be used as piece of property to be sold in this market, like property, a flat or a house or a car, anything that can be used as a guarantee. And so the funny situation is that when I came to one of the banks and asked them for a loan, and they asked me about guarantee or security, I have no guarantee. I just said to them, I have no guarantee, I have no security. I'm saying the flat that I have, I bought as mortgage, actually. I cannot give it to you as security. Can you think of what sort of solution they have provided on the basis of their business model? Because their business model is to create more assets that will generate more money to the bank. What was suggested? Deposit. Actually, no. They suggested.
To increase the interest rate.
They suggested. Is it all right? Yes. They suggested that I buy securities from them. What are securities? We'll speak about it later on, but maybe you have any ideas about what sort of securities is. Securities. Any idea about what it means in general? Yes, that's right. To buy securities from the bank. I say, what's the general volume of securities I'm supposed to buy? They say about the securities whose worth is around $5,000 would be fine. But I don't have $5,000. I say, I came to you to take a loan and you ask me to buy securities from you for $5,000. I said, isn't it stupid? They said, don't worry about that. We shall give you a loan to buy securities from us. I say, is it really true? They said, yes. and they gave me a loan worth $5,000, and actually I spent these $5,000 to buy securities from them, and under these securities that I bought from the bank worked as a guarantee for my loan. And this is a real case that happened in modern Russia. Can you explain this mechanism? Don't you think it sounds as a terrible fraud? What is fraud? Yes. Don't you think it sounds as a terrible fraud? Doesn't it sound a bit odd and strange? That the guarantee for my loan is buying securities on the money that is given to me by the bank itself. Yes, the interest is doubled, exactly. So as a result, according to their business model, they get what they want. They get another loan that is their asset, and this asset will generate more money for you. So first of all, I will have to pay interest on my loan. That's the first thing. Secondly, they will take my securities that I bought from them, and then they will place these securities in the stock exchange. And then in the stock exchange, the securities will start generating more money to them. And so probably by the end of the period when I have to actually to settle my debt. And this is another word that I would recommend you remembering. You settle your debt. What is debt settlement and settling debt is погасить долг, рассчитаться долг, settle, debt settlement and settle debt. So and by the time when I need to settle my debt, I will probably, they will generate enough money for them based on the interest that I pay to them, and also on the amount of money that they can generate by selling securities in the stock exchange. So this is all about assets, and each business. If you want to understand the essence of each business, it makes sense looking into their assets and how they work. Then you will have a better understanding how they work. Better understanding of how they work. As an experiment, you may ask about anything. You may ask about the education business, which might be very, very interesting. Selling computers, rendering certain services. What do you think is the main asset for television? You do not pay for your programs, yes, that you watch on television. How does television generate its money? Time and advertisement. Time that is allocated for the advertisement. So that's it. So assets, and every year you need to prove to the state that the assets that you have were lawfully acquired. If you take the bank, the lawfulness is their contract with you. They will provide loans, you take loans, and there is a contract between you and the bank that it is given, that the loan is given to you. But there may be so many assets actually on your balance sheet, whose origin you will have to prove. You will have to prove, like cars. And I remember I was once translating the annual report of Gazprom. I was requested to translate the annual report of Gazprom, and I was very much interested to find on their balance sheet bulls. I told you about this already, no? Bulls. What bulls? What are bulls? Biki. Yes. So when I was reading the balance sheet of Gazprom, I suddenly found bulls. I said, bulls for Gazprom. Well, I can't understand how bulls can generate money for Gazprom. That was a little bit odd. I said, okay, bulls. And then I started thinking, probably assets could be of different nature. Assets could be of different sort. Maybe you can suggest. By the way, next year when I was translating the same company's annual report for the next year, I discovered that the number of bulls reduced. Probably they add a certain number of bulls by the next year. Given that Gazprom is the main producer of oil and gas, that's their core business, do you think the assets can also be somehow classed differently? There may be assets that you need by all means for your business, and this will be your core assets. And can you suggest the Russian for core assets? Основные производственные активы. Основные производственные активы. Or there may be non-core assets, something that you need for doing your business in general. Like, for example, there is a necessity to motivate your workers, to motivate them doing work. For example, they get tired doing the same sort of work all the time. If you want to motivate them work, what would you do? You would think of all sorts of things that will make their lives happier, live better. They will probably purchase, I don't know, a resort house, I don't know, or a skiing base or whatever, and then you will invite people to go there from time to time. As a result, they will feel better motivated to work. So as a result, this skiing base will also be on your balance sheet. The question is, where do you take money to buy all that balance, to buy all these assets? You need to prove it for your valuation, that the assets that you buy were lawfully bought. How can you prove that the assets were lawfully bought? What is the source?
Capital or liabilities?
Yes, either capital or liabilities, that's true. That's true, either capital or liabilities. Now, the question to you all, first of all, the definition of liabilities, or maybe there is any other synonym for liabilities that you might use. Huh? No, liability is not responsibility. In business, liability can be translated and can be interpreted as responsibility. But in terms of money, in terms of finance, it has a different meaning. Yeah.
Responsibility for consequences.
No, not even that. Not even that. Liability is
Everything you owe to somebody.
yes, something that you owe to somebody. And so the closest synonym to the word liabilities is not necessarily expenditure. Not necessarily expenditure. It can be expensed or capitalized, by the way. It can be expensed or capitalized, as I said. So it can be spent just to buy food that you will eat. In that case, it will be expensed. Or you will invest it into something that will generate more money for you. In that case, it will be capitalized. So it will be either expensed or capitalized. So these are different. So the closest word for the word liability is debt. Exactly, debt. And so either this one, debt could be the source of the acquisition of assets. That's one thing. So, and by the way, I'm trying to use in my speech to you. It seems that I'm not teaching you the words, but my only aim now is to teach you the words. Therefore, I'm just teaching you the words by using them. Therefore, you just try to observe the words that I'm using them, like for example, acquisition of assets. So I said acquisition of assets. So you make notes that. So try to write down the words that you think are important for the rendering of this or that particular idea. Okay, acquisition of assets could be so the source for the acquisition of assets could be either debt or any other source. So debt or I need probably to draw it, yes, and then I will switch on a certain video that will explain that. Oh, I don't need it. Okay. Assets. I can buy machines, property, and so on and so forth. Yes. But on this side will contain liabilities. And these liabilities will be divided into two parts, probably. And the first part, that is upper, will be debt. And this one is the low part will be equity. What is equity? How do you understand equity? Do you think in order to buy a certain asset, you need by all means to go to the bank and take a loan? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You can do it, you can also use different money to actually acquire these assets.
Your own.
Yes, your own money. Your own money. That's the money of the owner of the business. So this is equity. And it's interesting that you spend this, all this money, the debt, and then you buy a certain number of assets, and then if you subtract one from the other, then the remaining side will be your equity. That is why it is called balance. Generally speaking, assets are equal to your debt. So the left side is equal to your right side. The left side is equal to your right side. That is called balance. That is why it is called balance. Because in fact, if you have 100 here, there will also be 100 here. If you have 100 rubles, you can buy machines worth 100 rubles, not more than that. So you cannot simply take a certain money from the bank and spend less, and the remaining part will be put into the pocket. It's impossible. You need to prove to the state, to the tax authorities, that you're right. And it is also important to do it every year for the state, because there will also be a certain tax on your operations and on your assets. You also pay tax, do you? If you own property, for example, if you own a flat, or if you own a car, you pay tax. This means that every year, depending on the value of the asset that you have, you will pay a certain amount of tax. Therefore, the state is interested in the knowledge of the amount of assets that you have in order to collect a certain number of money from you. Okay, let me show you a fragment of a video about the financials of any business. And I wonder how much of this you will understand based on what I just now told you. Let us see how much you will understand, and maybe you will explain to me certain words that were unfamiliar to me.
If you really want to know how a company is doing, you need to read their financial statements. It's the fastest and most reliable way to know if a company is doing well or struggling to survive. There are 3 different kinds of financial statements: the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement. First, let's start with the balance sheet. This summarizes a company's assets, liabilities, and equity at a specific time. Assets are broken down into 2 categories. Current assets, which include cash and highly liquid investment securities. And non-current assets, which include any property, buildings, plants, equipment, and company software. Next are the company's liabilities, which are also broken down into 2 categories. Current liabilities, which include bank loans, accounts payable, and other payables like payroll and accrued expenses. And non-current liabilities, which include any long-term loans or financial obligations. If you subtract the total liabilities from the total assets, you get the total shareholders' equity. Now, let's move to the company's income statement. This measures how much profit or loss the company has made over a specific period of time, which is why it's also referred to as a P&L statement. First, you have revenue, which is the amount of money the company makes by selling products or providing services. Next come COGS, or cost of goods sold, which is the amount spent producing or acquiring the products or services, including material and labor costs. Subtract COGS from revenue and you've got gross profit. Then come the operating expenses, which include day-to-day things like marketing costs, indirect labor costs, and so on. Subtract that from gross profit and you've got operating income. Next, take that number and subtract all other miscellaneous expenses and you've got the company's profit before taxes. Subtract the taxes and you've got the net profit. And that leads us to the 3rd financial statement, the cash flow statement. This measures how much cash flows in and out of a company over a specific period. Because a company's revenue and expenses can be delayed or deferred, this shows the actual cash flowing in and out of the company. First, you add together the cash flows from all operating activities, including profit before taxes, trade and other receivables, and trade and other payables. Then you add the cash flows from investment activities, along with the cash from financing activities. You then compare the cash at the beginning of the financial year to the cash at the end to determine if the company had a positive or negative cash flow. And that's how you read a company's financial statements. In our next video, we'll go even further and learn what these numbers actually mean.
Okay, how much of this was clear to you? How much of this you actually understood? Probably the first part, right? The balance sheet. Oh, everything.
Most of it.
Most of it. So in general, it is clear. This means that, generally speaking, all financial terminology, when clearly explained, is not a rocket science. It's not a rocket science. Well, what is the Russian, by the way, for it's not a rocket science? What do we say in Russian? For, Мы говорим по-русски, это не бином Ньютона. No? По-английски мы говорим, it's not a rocket science. So, generally speaking, if you explain them well, you understand how it works. So the first type of statement, or the first type of reporting or paper that is necessary to prove that your assets were lawfully acquired, you purchased them lawfully, you can lawfully pay tax on these assets, and then showing to your shareholders. Who are the shareholders? What does this mean? What does this mean? Who is a shareholder? Can you become suddenly a shareholder this evening of this or that company? Yes?
Shareholders are people who have papers which prove for their rights for some small or big part of company.
This needs to be simply explained. Who is a shareholder, and how can you become a shareholder? And why do you need to become a shareholder?
Shareholder is
Is the owner of the part of the company, or is the owner of the business? Can you suddenly today become the shareholder of Gazprom?
Yes.
How? How do you invest your money? How do you invest your money in the buy shares? Where? In the stock exchange. So you go to the stock exchange where? On your computer in the evening. You go into the stock exchange and then in the way. Why do you want to become a shareholder? Why do you want to become a shareholder? You hope to get dividends. You know that one of the biggest investors in the world, Warren Buffett, never pays dividends.
We help the company to get successful so we can sell these assets later for a higher price.
That's true. That's true. That's what Warren Buffett thinks about. Because if you hope to get dividends at the end of each year, the likelihood that you will get dividends is very, very small now. Very, very small. And once Warren Buffett said that, asked whether he ever pays dividends, he says, no, I never pay dividends. And then when somebody tried to remind him of doing this, he said, probably I was either sleeping or I was taking a shower, that I decided to pay dividends to my shareholders. So dividends will not generate any money for you, because the likelihood that the company will pay you the profit at the end of the year is very, very small. Is it lawful? Is it lawful for the company not to pay you dividends?
Yes.
Yes, it is lawful. How would they justify their decision?
The investment is more effective. They decide to reinvest in money.
Exactly. They take their net income that they get at the end, and then they will consider whether to take this amount of money that can be actually distributed among the investors. That's the word to use. Yes, distributed among the investors. So это, так сказать, средства доступны для распределения среди инвесторов. Instead, they decide to reinvest it, to invest it again into business. By doing what? Buying more assets. Buying more assets, like opening new offices, employing new people, setting up new businesses, for example. I don't know whether it is true or not, but I read about one company that works in the cellular mobile business, Nokia. Do you know Nokia? Somebody read on their website, I don't know whether it is true or not, that they started not as the manufacturers of cell phones, but their first business was the manufacturing of toilet paper in the forests of Finland. And simply they needed much electricity. As a result, they decided to build a power station not far from their factory. And they started building a power station, but because the source of energy, the river, was quite far, they decided to manufacture wire for themselves, for this factory. Through the manufacturing of wire, little by little, they got to the wiring and telecommunications business. So little by little, starting from a toilet paper to the high tech telecommunications business. So it may be that business will show itself as an excellent potential for you to develop it in the future, and you may simply lawfully tell your investors that it will be in their interest to do what? How would you justify? There is only one phrase that will justify not paying dividends to the investors. Can you think up this phrase that will be said to the investors in order to justify your decision not to pay any dividends? Any idea? Imagine, yes.
Maybe it's just negative cash.
I don't think it will make sense for the investors. They will not believe it, because every investor is looking for its own interest, and the interest of the investor is, what is the interest of the investor? The value of the company. That's true. That's true. Therefore, the only explanation that holds water in the explanation when you speak to the investors is that we reinvest this money to increase the value of the company. And then you need to provide probably a new reinvestment plan for the investor, for the shareholder, explaining that you're going to start a new business inside a business and to grow business and to go to other markets and so on and so forth. All right. Before I actually start moving to a different type of statements, so the second one is income statement. So we have the balance sheets, the first type of statements that is necessary. A balance sheet is a snapshot of your business. Currently, is a snapshot of your business. But you don't want only a snapshot of the business. You want something bigger. You want to see how money circulates inside the company and how you can actually get the profit at the end of the year, at the end of the business. Therefore, for this you need income statement that is also called profit and loss statement, or P&L in Russian. Отчет о прибылях и убытках. That's true. And this diagram, you can just photograph it. It just shows in general how these two types of statements work. So there is the balance sheet, and there is the income statement, and I will explain later on what they mean. But before that, I would want to speak to you about an asset, a little bit more about an asset. When you buy an asset, and then it appears on your balance sheet, do you just write the price of it, and that's that? Or do you think there are some other procedures that are necessary for the account of this specific asset? If you want your business to be устойчивый, the English for that? Sustainable, yes. So if you want your business to be sustainable, lasting, you will probably need this asset again and again. And it may be that this asset will suddenly become old or break, if it is a piece of machinery, right? Or new pieces of machinery will appear. What do you do in order to account correctly for this piece of equipment? And then probably today you buy this piece of equipment, but tomorrow, for example, a new, more advanced piece of equipment like this will appear, and you would want to buy a new piece of equipment. How can you explain to the shareholder that you don't want to use this anymore? You want to sell it and instead buy a new one. How will you explain it to the shareholder? And then how will you define the price of this piece of equipment that is old, but maybe not very old? Maybe you bought it only last year, and that you need to sell today. How would you explain it to the shareholder? What is the way of explaining to the state that you no longer own an asset, to the shareholder that you no longer need this asset, to the person who wants to buy it, explaining how much money it may cost or what will be the price of it. How will you explain that? Amortization or depreciation. That's right. So there is amortization or depreciation, rather depreciation, because the word depreciation is used for tangible assets. Tangible assets. And tangible assets is in Russian материальные активы. And there are also intangible assets. And intangible assets is нематериальные активы. Нематериальные активы. Can you possibly give the examples of the intangible assets that a business may own? Software, right. What else? For example, what do you think is the biggest intangible assets that oil and gas companies own? So they have the tangible assets. This is, what is the tangible assets of the oil companies? Oil, pipelines, reservoirs, tankers, and so on and so forth. Oil fields, probably they own these oil fields, maybe not. And when they not own these oil fields, what do they own? Right to use. Yes, exactly. They have. It is called mineral rights. It is called mineral rights. It's a term. It's a very good term. Mineral rights. What's the mineral rights? How do you understand the mineral rights? Mineral rights are the licenses, the paper that you have in order to do what? To drill in the oil field and mine. Yes, to drill, mine, and produce oil, or extract. Sometimes it is said, but normally it is production and mining. So licenses. Also, there may be some other intangible assets. For example, you own a house somewhere in the center of Moscow, let's say near Kremlin, right? And the house, for example, there is another house that looks very similarly to this one, built by the same architect, and using the same materials, the same bricks, the same mortar, the same logs and timber, everything. But what do you think that the same type of house, let's say located in Frunzenskaya, would be different from the price of the same house that is located next to the Kremlin?
Yes, of course.
Yes, why?
Because the place is really important.
Yes, the place is important, and the correct word will not be the place, but location. Yes, location. And they say that there are three main parameters that define the value of property, of real estate. Three main parameters. They are location, number two, location, and number three, location. So there are three main parameters that determine the value of the real estate, of the real property that you have. Location. So location is an intangible asset. Location is an intangible asset because you cannot feel it. You cannot put it into your pocket. Or, for example, as I showed to you last time, you may have a pen, right? And you may want to sell this pen to somebody. But then there is a document that is proving that this pen was formerly used by a pop star. And then this document will be a guarantee that this pen can be sold in this market for a higher price. As a result, the price for this item that you sell in this market will be higher. Will be higher not because the materials are important, but because of this intangible margin that appears for this particular asset. And this is your license, and this is a paper proving that it was formerly used and owned by a pop star. Normally, it is calculated. It is derived in the following manner. By the way, when you want to use the word calculate, I would recommend you strongly not to use the word calculate, but instead use the word derive. You derive a certain value. So value cannot be calculated, but you don't want to use the word appraise all the time. Therefore, you use the word derive as a synonym for that. All right. So when you get this piece of property and you buy it, and then you need to to write it down on your balance sheet in such a manner that will give you the right, first of all, to sell it, that will give you the right to get rid of that in the lawful manner, and also, which is very important, to buy a new asset. To buy a new asset at the end when this one is no longer functionable. When this one is no longer functionable. How would you know when this one is no longer functionable? Something that cannot function at all. How would you know? Can you estimate in general the approximate useful life of this telephone? One year, 2 years, 3, approximate? 5 years, maybe 5 years. How would you know? Because I think that in some cases, yes. In some cases, there is warranty. There is warranty that guarantees that this piece of equipment will not break within the period of 3 or 5 years. But in some cases, like for example, Apple phone, you will know that it will probably work even 5 years later. As a result, you are guided by the pace of the development of Apple company. And you think that in 5 years, Apple will probably produce another piece of equipment that will be smarter than this one. Therefore, 5 years later, you would want to buy a new one that will be more technically advanced. Therefore, the useful life for this piece of equipment in your company on your balance sheet will be 5 years, depending on your estimation of how quickly Apple company develops and produces and generates new models of telephones. 5 years. Therefore, on this balance sheet, you try to spread the value of this telephone for 5 years. You just break the whole amount of money that you actually spend to buy it into 5 pieces. And then you estimate approximately how much money this piece of equipment will cost or it will have on it at the end of the remaining useful life. Again, this is a term, remaining useful life. Это, так сказать, срок полезного использования. Срок полезного использования. What do you think will be the price of this piece of equipment in 5 years' time? Any ideas? Any ideas? So, 1,000 rubles. Probably not more than that, right? $50, maybe less. $50 or $20, something like that. Therefore, you subtract the price that you use to buy it from the salvage value. It is called salvage value. Salvage value is the value of the piece of equipment that you get at the very end of this. And then you divide it by the remaining useful life. And then you get the amount of money that you need to keep on your bank account that will gradually be accumulated so that you could buy a similar type of equipment at the end when the remaining useful life of this piece of equipment is over. Meaning you buy it for 100 rubles and you decide that approximately that the remaining useful life of this telephone is 100 years. This means that each year you will have to allocate 1 ruble on your bank account, 1 ruble. And at the end of this period, you say, I write off this piece of equipment. I write off. But when you write it off, you still have an asset on your balance. You have an asset, and this asset is 100 rubles that you accumulated before for the purchase of a new piece of equipment, like this one. And then this amount of money that this piece of equipment actually loses every year is called, so this piece of equipment loses a certain amount of money on it every year.
Amortization?
Yes, it's called depreciation. It's called depreciation. And amortization is used for intangible assets. For intangible assets. So it's called depreciation. The amount of money that this piece of assets actually loses every year is called depreciation. There may be 3 types of depreciation. The first type is a physical depreciation. I will show you now a small video explaining this sort of stuff. The first thing of depreciation is a physical amortization. A physical amortization is actually all those cracks and physical deficiencies that this piece of equipment may have because of the usage. You use it and it loses. So physical depreciation is actually its physical condition. And you may estimate, for example, you buy a new car. You buy an absolutely new car today. What do you think that the price will be the same? the price for it will be the same tomorrow? No. How much do you think it will lose tomorrow?
10%.
20. Normally it is 20% down. Normally it is 20% down. So this 20% is your estimation of the physical depreciation that it normally has. So secondly, there may be moral depreciation. Moral depreciation. What is a moral depreciation? Моральный износ. Моральный износ. It may be, for example, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I went to a shop in Yasneva, and suddenly I saw a computer. Can you imagine? I saw a computer. It was just incredible. I saw a computer. It was wonderful. And the price of that computer was 60,000 rubles. I said, no, ever, ever. Never, ever in my life I would be able to buy a computer for myself, because the price of it is 60,000 rubles, just incredible. And my stipend, or the salary that I got every month was, I don't remember, $20 or something of the sort. I got very, very small amount of money. But then somebody gave me as a present a computer. And I decided, and at that time my wife said to me, darling, let's save it for our children. I said, okay, let's do it. And we took a brand new computer. We put it aside in our lumber room, and it stayed there for 5 or 6 years. 6 years later, I discovered this computer. It was brand new, not a crack, not a single physical deficiency on it. Do you think the price of this computer will be the same today? No. So because of the moral value, because of the moral depreciation, the value of this computer fell down, the usefulness of this computer fell down. There is one more type of depreciation that is called economic. So the second one is called moral depreciation, and sometimes it is called functional depreciation. Functional depreciation or moral depreciation. And the third type is called economic depreciation. Economic depreciation. Now let me explain what economic depreciation actually means. By the way, I want to repeat again. This is not a lecture on economics. I can make mistakes sometimes because I'm a linguist. I'm just explaining to you how to speak on these subjects in English, so that next time when you speak to businessmen and business people and work with documents, you will understand the same terms. Therefore, I'm just a layman in this area. But I'm using the words that are correct. Therefore, in our base camp tasks, you'll be performing all sorts of explaining and translation and commenting on the real documents. And there you will get the real source of the real definitions of these terms, okay? So that there will be no misunderstanding and saying that Marklen told us something that is not in keeping with the current economic policy. All right.
You just said I'm a
Linguist.
something.
Layman.
Lemon?
Layman.
What is it?
Не специалист. Не специалист. So I'm not a specialist in economics. Although I worked for one of the biggest consultant company, Deloitte, and I also worked for the English newspaper, The Economist newspaper, for a number of years. So people trusted me. So this means that the sort of language that I was using was correct. Probably they were happy with that. So therefore, I'm just sharing with you the sort of language that I gained from these companies, and hopefully this language is correct, because through my hands came just so many reports, materials, articles, stories, and never ever my employers were dissatisfied with that. So hopefully it will be fine. So finally, economic depreciation. Imagine who was the governor of Chukotka at one time, one of the oligarchs, I forgot his name. Abramovich, that's right, yes, Abramovich. So Abramovich was once the governor of Chukotka, and he understood that it is very important to provide electricity, to supply electricity to the houses in Chukotka. What do you think he was doing, he had to do in order to provide electricity to the people of Chukotka? Imagine you are Abramovich, what would you be doing?
Build a power station?
Yes, you will build a power station, that's true. You would want to build a power station. Do you think this power station will ever generate any profit for you? No, never ever. Because the people in Chukotka will never be able to pay the tariffs to cover all your expenses, to cover all your costs that you undergo in order to build a power station. This means that the remaining useful life of the power station will be shorter than the cash flow that will be generated by the electricity generated by it. So it means that it has 100% depreciation already at the point of the construction. When you just construct the power station, you understand that depreciation on it is 100%. You know, it's like buying an old and broken piece of equipment to say, would you like to buy a new pen from me? It doesn't work. It's the same stuff. You say, yes, I would want to buy it as a souvenir. Because it's from you, it has a certain value in it. All right. Now, how do you think can intangible asset lose its value? Do you think that intangible asset can lose its value? Because we were speaking about depreciation of the physical items, of the tangible assets, but there can also be there can also be amortization of non-material, intangible assets. How can this happen? Any ideas about how can a mineral rights, for example? Yes, please.
The environment can be spoiled.
Yes, exactly. Suddenly, for example, there may be some kind of spill of chemicals in the area. There was something similar, I think, last week in Moscow, when suddenly so many owners of property lost their property, when 100 shops were destroyed in Moscow. And many of them had contracts or renting these pieces of property until the year of 2026, as the press was said. So they had a piece of paper. They had a piece of paper proving their rights to own this property and use it as a shop until the year 2026. Suddenly, overnight, this piece of paper was depreciated. Overnight. So it lost any value. What do you think these people will do? They will go to the court of law. Do you think they will win? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. They will win. But this is a very good example of amortization. That was due to unpredictable circumstances. Like the decision of the state. It's like it's called force majeure, or formally it was there was another English term that was used for that. Do you know any other terms to describe the Russian for форс-мажорные обстоятельства, обстоятельства непреодолимой силы, как иногда это называется, обстоятельства непреодолимой силы. What are they called? It's interesting that formally, about 7 or 10 years ago, they were called acts of God. And in the contracts of that time, you would find a word combination like acts of God. that was very interesting indeed. Okay, now let me show you another small video that explains the essence of depreciation, and largely it will just repeat what I said to you a minute ago about depreciation. And then we shall move to another subject. Okay.
Depreciation is when the cost of tangible assets are allocated over their useful life. So what this means is that instead of accounting for the cost of an asset when it is bought, the cost of that same asset will be spread across its lifetime. Before we get into an example, I want to tell you that there are many methods companies use to calculate depreciation. For this example, we will be using the straight line method because it's simple, and I want this video to help you understand the gist of how depreciation works. The formula for straight line depreciation is cost price minus salvage value divided by the useful life of the asset. The cost price is how much it costs the company to purchase and begin using the asset. The salvage value means when the company is done with the asset, how much money can they get out of it? So they can get money by selling, scrapping, or trading in the asset. Now let's look at the useful life of an asset. The useful life can be expressed in many different ways. It can be expressed in years, months, working hours, and even units. For our example, I'll keep it simple and express useful life in years. Say a company purchases equipment for $20 million. This equipment will last for an estimated 10 years. And once it is done with, the company can trade it in for an estimated $2 million. So now, let's plug these numbers into the formula. $20 million minus $2 million divided by 10 years equals $1.8 million per year. So what happens with this $1.8 million is that it becomes a part of expenses and affects net income. The company still gets this money, but because they didn't show that they spent $20 million when the equipment was bought, they now have to show the expense over time. Net income before taxes is revenue minus expenses. This $1.8 million will now be a part of expenses because the company has to account for the purchase. This $1.8 million will continue to be a part of expenses for the next 10 years because the cost of the asset has to be accounted for. Another thing that this $1.8 million affects is asset values. As we know, book value is assets minus liabilities. Since this equipment is a part of these assets and is depreciating every year, assets will decrease. Every year, this $1.8 million is subtracted from assets because this equipment isn't worth $20 million a year later. In the accounts, it is worth 20 minus 1.8 million, so 18.2 million. Every year, the stated value of the equipment will decrease by 1.8 million because it is depreciating. This will reduce assets and in turn reduce book value on the balance sheet. Depreciation continues until the asset is fully depreciated or if the company gets rid of the asset. In conclusion, depreciation is when the cost of an asset is spread across its useful life. Depreciation is a part of expenses and affects net income. It also affects book value by reducing asset values.
Okay. So I hope you understood everything that was said here on the basis. I hope you understood much of this, of what I actually said. And the only word that probably was new to you, or maybe you guessed about it, is the word trade-in. What's a trade-in? How do you understand this word, trade-in? Because when you trade in an asset. Trade-in means you sell it for the price, for the value that remains on this asset. You trade in. When you have a car, there's a trade-in. There are lots of trade-in websites where you can actually sell the used car. This is trade-in. All right. So I understand that the amount of information that I'm giving to you here is a little bit hard on your brains and on your memory, and therefore I try to make a short list of something that you need to remember, some fragments to remember previously, and then something that we're going to discuss next time. Let's repeat once again. We discussed what value is. We said that value is the same as usefulness. Then we were discussing how to generate this value variously depending on the communicative strategy that you use for your marketing that will tell the market that this is not a bar of chocolate, that this is food. Then depending on your communicative strategy, you will buy certain assets and explain how you can actually account for these assets on the balance sheet, and then how this accounting of each piece of equipment should be accounted based on its depreciation and amortization, so that you would be transparent enough in front of the state, and so that you would be clean in front of the tax authorities, and you would be paying lawfully the taxes that are derived or calculated based on the remaining useful life of the assets that are on your balance sheet and the value that the piece of asset has after depreciation of so many years on your balance sheet. So this is generally all for today. Today I will also publish another task that you will need to perform. This task will be related to explaining the essence of the balance sheet. And there is a wonderful book written by an Indian economist, Damodaran. Damodaran is the modern classics of valuation. One of his famous book is Investment Valuation. I'm going to give you a fragment from his book for the translation, for explanation. It explains value, what value is. Now I want a piece of paper from you where all your names are listed. Please give it to me. And also, I wonder, those people who were here last time, you also wrote it, no? Okay, you'll do it next time. Do you have any questions so far? Is everything clear? Everything that I'm saying to you, is everything clear? I'm trying to think. I have two papers. Is everything clear that I'm saying? Meaning, would you want me to speed up or slow down or use different language? Is everything clear? Maybe there is anything that can improve. To write some words on the blackboard. Okay, I will do it. Just using that blackboard. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.